Hello, everybody. How are you doing? We'll get started in just a few minutes. Excellent. My name is Leanne Lamb, and I'm president of Contemporary Asian Theater Scene, otherwise known as CATS. And I'd like to welcome you to our first CATS Artist Interview Series that we're kicking off during Asian Pacific Heritage Month. Today's sponsor is Minato Japanese Restaurant. And as you saw in the opening remarks, there will be a little bit of a giveaway at the end of the program, so we'll be excited about that. I'd like to welcome our esteemed artists and filmmakers of the soon-to-be-released film, Sansei Granddaughters Journey. And we have a number of panelists to join us during this discussion. I'd like to introduce them, and if they can say hello. Ellen Bepp.
Hello.
Thanks, Ellen. Sherry Orai DeBoer.
Hi, I'm Sherry.
Excellent. Reiko Fuji.
Hi, I'm Reiko Fuji. Thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Kathy Fujioka.
Hi, I'm Kathy.
Excellent. Naomi Judy.
Hi there. Nice to see some familiar names joining us today.
Excellent. Pat Mayo.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Pat. And Kala Nishimoto.
Hello.
Excellent. These are our wonderful panelists, and we'll hear more from them in a little bit. With that, let's go to the film clip of Sansei Granddaughters Journey, and then we'll continue with our Q&A.
In April 2018, a journey began for 5 San Francisco Bay Area artists: Reiko Fuji, Ellen Bepp, Kathy Fujioka, Judy Shintani, and Sherry Arai DeBoer shared a common history. Their relatives were unjustly imprisoned in American concentration camps during World War II. These included Topaz Camp in Utah, Heart Mountain Camp in Wyoming, Gila River Camp in Arizona, Amachi Camp in Colorado, Crystal City Family Camp in Texas, Lordsburg Camp in New Mexico, and Tule Lake and Manzanar camps in California. This particular journey to the Manzanar camp transported the artists deeper into their families' roots, to imagine a time when their relatives were sent to desolate areas of the country. The artists sought to dig deeper beneath the layers, to reveal more about this unjust history that connected them, as they discovered unexpected insights and unique shared experiences.
It was a beautiful clip of the film, and with that, I'd like to start some questions over here. Let's see, Sherry, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the genesis for coming together to create this project?
Oh, sure. Yes, the whole project got started in 2018 when Naomi Judy reached out to several of us because she was thinking of going to the Manzanar pilgrimage for the first time. And she wanted to know if any of us had ever attended or would like to go along with her. So Reiko and Barbara Horiuchi replied right away that they have been to past pilgrimages and highly recommended it. So soon the rest of us signed on and we were ready for this road trip. We all knew one another to some degree through Asian American Women Artists Association. And Steve, can you show my first image? Barbara ended up not being able to make the trip, but early on, she had suggested we do a collective art project and in conjunction with our journey. So we met to talk about what it might be, and that's when the seed of this documentary was planted, and our journey became much more than just a road trip. So we agreed we wanted to do something to honor our relatives who had been incarcerated. Naomi suggested making her remembrance lanterns, as she does in her art practice. And before our trip, we each made 1 or 2 lanterns, which are shown here in the photo. The next image, Steve, is one of my etchings, transit rooms that addresses my family's history, including their incarceration at Tule Lake Camp. So at the meeting, we said that Reiko said that she'd like to document our journey, which we all agreed would be great. Then she realized that if she was busy shooting the video, she wouldn't be able to fully participate in the activities. So she had the inspired idea, her longtime friend Pat, to join us as videographer. And Pat also became a great writer of the narrative and advisor to the whole project. In post-production, Reiko took the project way beyond just documentary journey to include historical context and personal insights. Callan contributed music, audio editing, and after a couple screenings of the earlier version of the film, he added new content about each of our practices and how we share our stories through the lens of being artists. That's how it all came together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sherry. And this, I think that gave us a really good idea and match what you were saying, Sherry. Reiko, I'd like to ask you a question. Can you tell us how it affected you to be in the exact spot where your family's barracks were located?
I'd like to introduce you to 3 generations of my Inaba family in a photograph that was taken in 1940. In 1941 to 1942, these 16 relatives plus my newborn Uncle Tony were all arrested and taken to various American concentration camps. Of the 20 members of my Fuji and Inaba families, 16 of them went to Manzanar first. This included my great-grandparents, grandmother, mother, great-aunts, uncles, aunts, and great-cousins. This is the exact site where my Inaba family's barrack was located. Standing on the spot, which was Block 21, Barrack 4, Apartments 4, 5, 6, made me think about how 16 people were crowded into this area in just 3 apartments. The stories I had heard from my parents, aunts, and uncles were brought to life. The harsh winds blowing sand into my father's pomade-covered hair, the lack of privacy and the public toilets that had no walls and the communal showers, the extreme heat in the summer and the bitter cold in the winter, which many had to endure for 4 years. I thought about how my innocent relatives must have felt being unjustly forced from their familiar farm and homes to live in the desert based on a crime that they did not commit. I wondered how my non-English speaking grandmother endured being there with her 7 children, including her 2-month-old baby, without her husband. My grandfather, Chikayasu, had been arrested 3 months earlier and was separated from his family for a total of 15 months. During this time, he was imprisoned at various other concentration camps in California and New Mexico. I held back tears while walking on the land that my mom and her family had walked on. The beautiful view of the pristine, snow-capped mountains was unfortunately marred by barbed wire.
Thank you, Reiko. That was just like a real visceral kind of experience, hearing you excited and seeing the images right there. Let's go for Kathy. Can you discuss why you created artwork from the incarceration experience and a little bit about the process of using historical materials in your works?
Thank you, Leanne. I create art from the incarceration experience because my family was interned during World War II. I feel compelled to share my story, their story, especially to the younger generations, like my daughter and my grandchildren and their children. I want them to know about the prejudice and injustice that my family endured because of our Japanese descent. I use historical data to support my thesis on the theme of my art, and then a narrative is born. The legacy of Fuji Nursery is a photo montage of my grandfather and his younger brother and daughter, surrounded by army soldiers and military trucks, loaded with plants and cherry blossom trees to be delivered to Fort Ord in Monterey. My family donated truckloads of their inventory to various cities just before incarceration as a gesture of goodwill, because they didn't want the plants to go to waste. And when they returned after the war, the nursery was gone. The Golden Crane is a somber and spiritual piece of my grandfather at Gila River Camp, tending to the gardens. Although my grandfather was with his brother and family, he longed for my grandmother and their youngest son, who were residing in Japan. He sows the seeds of hope. A crane swoops down to aid his sorrow, and the barbed wire elicits a feeling of grief and confinement that is evident in my grandfather's face. What happened to my family during World War II is happening again today. Immigrant families and their children wrongfully being detained. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, and that is why I'll continue to create.
Thanks so much, Kathy. Just to continue on that spirit, Naomi Judy, can you discuss the parallels between the imprisonment of migrant families today with the Japanese American experience during World War II?
Thank you, Leanne. Many Japanese Americans feel a moral obligation to stand up and protest against what is happening at our southern borders, the inhumane treatment and imprisonment of asylum seekers. Children are being separated from their families and kept in deplorable conditions. Their plight echoes a lot of what happened to our families during World War II, when 120,000 Japanese American people were imprisoned without due process. And about half of those that were incarcerated were children. I was able to attend a pilgrimage at Crystal City Concentration Camp, and then also was able to go to a protest at one of the largest detention centers in the United States. And it was then that I felt inspired to create my installation called Dream Refuge. So through my art, I decided that I wanted to connect these different histories of children being incarcerated in the United States from the past and now. And in the center image, you can see that these are the current children that don't have any beds and are sleeping on the Mylar blankets. There's a great concern right now about the coronavirus spreading in these unsanitary conditions that these children are kept in and at the border. And some of that echoes some of the issues that the Japanese Americans had at Poston concentration camp with the TB virus. And so there's concern that this could happen again. So right now there's an opportunity to raise your concerns about this. There's a virtual protest that's going to be happening on June 6th and 7th through the Sudo for Solidarity organization. And you can go to their site to register and become part of the protest and action against these camps continuing.
Thank you, Naomi Judy. I think we're all going to look more and understand that a little bit more. Pat, I have a question for you regarding some of the challenges that you might have experienced while filming at Manzanar. Can you share some of that?
Sure, yes. There challenges during filming. There were a few. First of all, we only had 2 days to capture what we wanted at Manzanar. So the first challenge was to get it right. Then and there wasn't going to be any do-overs. So the next challenge for me was to actually come to terms with some of my preconceived expectations versus the reality of doing the filming there at Manzanar. I had prepared mentally and methodically for all the camera shots that we had all agreed upon in advance that would be important. But when I stepped into that environment, I realized that there would be a lot of adjustments that would need to be made. First of all, the day that we arrived was desert hot, really, really hot and dry and windy. The crowds were in the hundreds and they were concentrated in a very tight venue. The mood was much more festival-like and loud, louder than I had expected it would be. There were simultaneous speeches, music, drumming, and constant movement of people in and out of my camera frames. So we attempted even some intimate interviews that were set away from the crowds, but our sound equipment couldn't compete with the wind that day. And the final blow in terms of just some challenge was that there was a technical problem that we were having with the battery life on the cameras. We had multiple batteries, but we didn't realize until the end of day 2 that 2 of the battery packs were actually defective, and which was the reason that I was stressing out when the batteries kept draining so quickly. So I guess the final challenge for me was to act very cool, calm, and collected to the greater group, even though I was feeling anything but that day. The first day at Manzanar for me ended very sweaty and drained and a little bit defeated. But the second day was much more successful, and we only had some minor technical glitches. And so that was good. And the best was just jumping back in the van to return to the Bay Area with this amazing group of women who truly are the ones that brought the real life force to this film with their stories and their art. And one other honorable mention that I'd like to sneak in, if I may, is to our editors, Callan and Reiko. For any film, editing is where the real magic happens. And when you see this film, you will see that that's self-evident. Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much for that perspective, Pat. Really appreciate that. I'd like to ask Ellen. Ellen, looking at this whole film, what do you hope to achieve with this project collectively? You know, what's your key message that you'd like us to take away from it?
Thank you, Leanne. There are actually several things we hope to achieve, but today I'd like to talk about 3 of them. First of all, we hope that the film will show the importance of learning about one's own history and how historical events deeply affect our personal lives. We want the film to show how understanding history can hopefully help us learn how to avoid making the same mistakes again in the future. We hope that the film will be an educational tool. We would love to have it used in classrooms at any level, to be shown at community gatherings and events, to open up dialogue and sharing of stories, and even at gallery presentations where we could, as artists, delve into more about our personal histories and talk about how our life experience influences the kind of artwork that we do. And then thirdly, we want to bring awareness to the public at large about the deep emotional trauma that the incarceration experience engendered, not only in those who were imprisoned, but in their descendants as well, like ourselves. But unfortunately, it doesn't stop at the 3rd generation. It's the kind of trauma that is generational, so it continues to the subsequent generations. So we hope perhaps the film could be a kind of healing tool as well, and whereby viewers who may feel a connection to our stories in their own lives may find a way to help in their own healing process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And I think a major part of healing is the music that comes along and supports the film and puts a wrapper around it. And with that, Callan, I have a question for you. And I'm trying to understand the inspiration for the music that you created and composed, and what were you trying to convey?
Hi. The most important aspect of, I believe, of a film is the storyline and what the storyline is trying to speak to the audience. And I felt the storyline first, and then what I would like to try to create is the mood and the color of the film. And those two elements, the mood is sort of the emotional content, the color is textures, what type of instruments you're using, what timbres you're using. All those aspects are key to supporting the film in a emotional narrative way. And I also try to use a combination of Western and Eastern instruments, shamisen, taiko, shinobue, shakuhachi, in addition to using classical string instruments and dulcimer, different elements that would sort of mix the Western and Eastern type of sounds into a cohesive way that would provide an emotional content for the movie, but it's relatable both on a Western side and Eastern side. So it both representing sort of where we're coming from as a Sansei generation Japanese American. So that was my frame of mind for the film.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Callan. Yeah, we have an opportunity to answer a question that might come on Facebook. If you'd like to post that, or through our Zoom chat, please feel free to do that, and you'll have your question asked. In the meantime, one thing that might come up is all of you have been artists for, you have beautiful art in whatever you're creating, and maybe you can ask, you can respond and talk about the art that how long has art been part of your life?
I'll talk first. I just wanted to mention my mother, and she was the one who drew this picture behind me. She never really got a chance to be an artist, but she was an artist at heart. And so one day she came over and I gave her a brush, a big brush, and I said, can you just draw something that reminds you of Manzanar or Crystal City? Because she was in both camps. And she just took that brush and she used her whole body, and she was copying a picture from a cover of a book, and it was amazing to watch her. And so it was her inspiration since I was tiny, since I was little, because she used to make things out of nothing, like out of newspaper, and make life-size dolls for us. So she was my inspiration from way back. And I really started studying the art though after college.
Thank you, Reiko. Kathy or Ellen, Sherry, Naomi, Judy, would you like to add to that?
I can.
Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I started drawing when I was about 4 years old. My mom was trying to figure out what to do with me because I wasn't very good at ballet dancing or swimming or anything else. And so she tried art, and I just loved drawing everything that was in our lives, and did that, throughout my childhood. But when I got to college age, my parents really wanted me to be a scientist or a biologist, and I totally switched gears and eventually went into graphic design. But kind of got back into my own work and into understanding my family history when I was actually in my 40s, when I went to JFK University, and that's where I really have taken art as my full-time passion.
Thanks, Naomi, Judy. How about Ellen? Ellen, were you going to add to that?
Just a little. My interest in art goes back to childhood as well, but I think it was partly because I was influenced by my grandfather and grandmother who lived with us when we were very small, and they were both artistic and writers, and my grandmother was into flower arranging and sewing and textiles, and so I think she taught me a lot of stuff, and I just was very interested at a young age, but it wasn't probably until probably college and after college that I started to get more interested, but more in the textile fiber arts field. That's what really spoke to me after traveling to Asia and Latin America, where I studied weaving, and that was really my passion. So I sort of came in the back door, and I rebelled, and I didn't want to go to art school. So I consider myself more of a self-taught artist, but it's just something that I love to do, no matter what's going on in the world.
Excellent, thank you. With that, I'd like to, on behalf of CATS, I'd really like to thank our panelists and the upcoming to be released film. I'm really excited to see that we will be premiering Sansei Granddaughters Journey at our Reconnect Film Festival online, happening in the October timeframe, and we'll share the URL for that one. But we're very excited to be able to premiere this important film, and such a personal journey that we're going to be hearing about. This panelist was fabulous right now, so we'll be sure to see this. I do have a question from Francesca, and she asked, how do you define healing, and how does your art inform the healing process? Would a panelist like to take that question?
I'll say a little bit about it. For me, the healing is letting whatever is pent up inside of you come out, so that you're not the only one who's judging yourself, but so I put it in my artwork, and then I also have support people, and it's that letting it come out instead of holding it in. That's where my healing starts.
So I've found that through my art, just telling whatever story, personal or about the family, that's what's really been rewarding and helps me in healing, is conversations I've had, unexpected conversations I've had with people, some that I know and some, that I just meet through talking about the art. And that's really been, I think, one of the greatest things about doing my art, which I came to later in my life after college and stuff. I always made things as a youngster, but anyway, I think that just connecting through people, through my art, has been very healing. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. This has been a really wonderful discussion, so thank you so much. I want to thank the panelists, and again, also our sponsor, Minato Japanese Restaurant. And we do have a giveaway of tickets for a takeout from the restaurant. And we have a question, and the first person who answers this correctly wins. And we're marking this not only on Zoom, capturing this information on Zoom, as well as Facebook Live. So you can feel free to answer your question, but the first person, because we have eagle eyes on both sites, wins. The question is, in 1942, President Roosevelt signed an executive order that led to the incarceration of 120,000 Japanese Americans. What number was the executive order? Thank you. Sandra Yagi is the winner. Yay, congratulations, Sandra. That's wonderful. Sandra, if you could send your information, your contact information, your name, address, email, and phone number to catstheater@gmail.com. We'll get that information out to you. Sandra, congratulations, and and your mailing address, of course, if I didn't say that. Excellent. Congratulations, Sandra. Again, I'd like to close and thank again our panelists and for sharing their stories, their journey. Looking forward to seeing their film as well. We do have, I believe, a slide that'll come up which shows some of the email addresses, the URLs actually for some of the artists that are available. And with that, our next interview is going to happen next month on June 10th. There we go. Okay, there we go. June 10th, we'll be featuring the filmmakers of Happy Cleaners. And if you came to our film festival last October, this was one of our sold out films, and it features filmmakers Julian Kim and Peter S. Lee. It was a fantastic film and I think well recognized. Again, save the date. In October, we'll be having a virtual film festival. It's called Reconnect. And as you can see, this is going to happen next fall, just about a few months away. And the web address is svapfilmfest.org. Again, if you're not a member of our Facebook site, please do so. If you'd like to be added to our mailing list, we'll be glad to communicate it through that way. You can send and you can put your information in through the chat. Thanks so much, everybody, for your participation and your time this afternoon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you.
You can come off mute, everybody. Yay. Thanks so much for joining.
Good job.
Hey.
Thanks, good.
Thank you so much. Great program.
Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Nina.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Great job, Steve. Great job, Isaac.
Thanks, Isaac.
Yeah, thank
Thanks, y'all. Hey, Koto. Hey.
People are showing their faces now.
No, I was in the kitchen. I didn't want you to see me making breakfast.